Well, there's something about our sense of smell, right? Scents are great memory triggers, even stronger than sight or sound, I think. For example, in high school, I had a friend in the drama club whose scent was very particular and pleasant. It was a mix of soap and shampoo, and ended up smelling vaguely like strawberries. Very unique. Now, I haven't seen this person since high school, over 20 years, but sometimes I'll catch that smell somewhere, and I'll be transported back in time to the band room rehearsing for Once on This Island. Now, this is a very pleasant scent memory. Not all of them are so pleasant, though. If you've ever spent time in a hospital or a nursing home, you know that they have a very specific smell. It's a mix of disinfectant and really bad food, among other things. And no one likes to be sick in the hospital, so this can bring up unpleasant memories. Similarly, today, the costly perfume that Mary uses on Jesus has a very pleasant smell, but a very specific association. It smells good, but the purpose of the perfume is to cover up the smell of a dead body. Now, in our culture, we tend to hide from death and try to ignore it like it's never going to happen to us. But it actually is one of the few things that every human being has in common. And here in America, we tend to die in hospitals or nursing homes. Then the orderlies wrap us up, hide us away, take us to the basement. Then the funeral home comes in their unmarked van and quietly picks us up and takes us to their basement, where they do their thing with the doors closed. But back then, and in some cultures now, and there's actually a movement in the U.S. leaning more towards this type of thing, when somebody died, they died at home, and then the family would wash and clean the body and cover the body with this perfume so that the smell wouldn't become too overwhelming for them. This was a final act of love and caring that the family could do for their beloved departed person. And that sounds nice. A nice way to say goodbye. And this is what Mary is doing today. Mary, it seems, is the only disciple that actually gets it. She's actually been listening to Jesus this whole time, so she knows what's going to happen. So she's showing Jesus her love and her affection and her caring for him before he dies, rather than after. She anoints him while he's still there. Now, back then, only men could anoint people. And it was seriously taboo for men and women to touch in any capacity in ancient Israel. And it was also seriously taboo for her to take her hair down in front of people. This was big scandal. I'm sure when they left dinner, none of them were talking about how good the roast was. So women tended to be looked at as objects of sexual desire or baby machines. And so Judas protests this. But Jesus defends Mary. He says, leave her alone. She understands what's about to happen, and she is a disciple, equal to or even better than the other disciples, in my opinion. Jesus doesn't see her as a woman. Rather, he sees her as a human being, a beloved disciple. And here, she's prefiguring Jesus' command to love as I have loved you. But Judas doesn't like what Mary is doing. Not because of the social norms that she's breaking. Now, we've talked in the past about how in the Gospel of John, believing in God means having a relationship with God. So Judas sees Mary having a relationship with Jesus. And then he realizes that he doesn't. so he gets jealous. And he says the thing that jealous people say sometimes, well, we could have helped the poor with that money. Sounds a little bit like one of those political debates on TV. He sees something he doesn't like, so he decides to trot out an issue. The poor. The children, oh God, think of the children. We've all heard that one, right? But he doesn't really care about the poor at all. That's not what he's mad about. And Jesus paraphrases the Old Testament here. The poor will always be with you. He's not dismissing the idea of helping the poor. 300 denarii was a year's wages for one bottle of perfume. So that is a lot of money. Rather, he's saying that our command from God is to always be helping the poor. No matter if we have pricey perfume or not, doesn't matter. Extravagant acts of love are also of value in life and in relationships. So here, Mary is showing this radical love for Jesus and for God. She is a true disciple, while Judas is not. So he becomes angry. The next time we see him is when he comes back. But that's jumping ahead. Mary's actions here are very unexpected. But God is always showing up where we least expect it, right? The Israelites were awaiting a Messiah, but they were expecting a king, a soldier, someone who was going to lead their army against the evil Romans and free them. But what they got instead was a carpenter, a gentle soul who preached love and kindness, equality, and passive resistance. So God showed up in the form that they didn't want. So they rejected him. And Mary knows this. So she's preparing Jesus for burial. So this perfume smelled very sweet, but also a bit sour, because they know that when they smell it, it means that death has come. That's the tension of the gospel and life in general. We live always with death, even if we try to ignore it. Life does not exist without death. And in Lent, we are residing in the in-between the sweet smell of Jesus' love and the stench of Jesus' inevitable death. The key for us is to figure out how we live in the in-between. Should we be like Mary? Live with love? Show our love for others now? Show our piety in the world now? Show our generosity? Make a relationship with God now, while we're alive? I think yes. It's rhetorical, but yes, that is the answer. Don't wait to show your love in the world, because someday it will be too late. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.